You can tell a lot about a game by its introduction. The first few sights and sounds are enough to make a lasting impression. An indication of amazing things to come, Resident Evil 4 presents the greatest and most memorable opening sequence in gaming history. It takes some time to transpire, but it gets its point across jarringly, with unmistakable and unparalleled lucidity. The cold open narration passes for not only riveting exposition, but it establishes a palpable tone of loss and survivor's guilt that casts a feeling of dread and foreboding over the rest of the entire game. This unordinary practice of instilling initial discomfort and gloom already has us inherently conditioned to trepidation from the start. Though it is possible to understand the events of Resident Evil 4 without knowing the events of Leon's origins, the insight into his beginnings makes the present scenario he finds himself in all the more poetic and all the more haunting. Recalling the horrendous incident is a way for us to better identify with our hero, sense his vulnerability and his resolve, and better understand the context of everything that is to unfold and how nothing previous can compare. This is the reality of playing Resident Evil 4. No game made before or since can match the spellbinding atmosphere or the visceral playing experience. Allow me to paint a picture for you. An abstract undercurrent of fear and uncertainty encapsulates us before the projections of any concrete physical threats materialize, and when they do so with frightening and frantic pacing. But the beginning is an antithesis to scares. Your encroachment on the village is measured and methodical, the evil almost as unsuspecting to you as your approach is creeping. You encounter your first local, who incoherently but very demonstratively informs you that you are trespassing, and he doesn't have the time nor the intent to negotiate. Begrudgingly, Leon takes it upon himself to exercise the only option available to him under the circumstance, to neutralize the seemingly mortal assailant. The stench of death permeates the air. The revelation that this is not a zombie, though intriguing, is not such a welcome surprise. It is an omen of perhaps something worse, something more sinister. You turn to see your entourage is missing in action. The bridge is out, and the only way for answers is forward. Trudging through this rural and desolate scenic route is an eerie calm. The music skips cue for lack of battle, as silence and serenity take hold for that moment of bereft solitude. You amble, inquisitive as you are wary, but you are mightily determined as you search and scour, prowling the rustic shacks that are outwardly abandoned, like a detective scanning his surroundings for any semblance of normalcy. This is a fleeting comfort. You find that you are alone, but danger is never far. You are stalked by belligerents, armed with only misplaced aggression, channeled through rudimentary tools that barely threaten your person, and this almost insults your intelligence as you are armed with a trusty 9mm. But they are not concerned with your immediate demise. Rather, they seem to be taunting you, leading you into a false sense of security, the illusory concept of tactical superiority. You put them down with ease, but you begin to realize that your ammo resources are running on short supply. There is no turning back. You stumble upon a decrepit pueblo with a large gathering of evil residents, and you realize now just how uninvited you are. You discover an associate, found one of them, being cooked for the cult of sacrifice as the entire village descends into chaos and you are inundated and ambushed, surrounded on all sides, overwhelmed and overmatched. You desperately barricade yourself in a dwelling. It is a haphazard ploy as you hear the cacophony of foreigners plotting against you, the sound of their hysteria only drowned out by the pronouncement of a screeching chainsaw. Shit is right. You panic, aimlessly scrounging for a defense, only to find a temporary repellent. You load up your shotgun shells, discharging indiscriminately now, thinning the horde one by one, but there are too many. Reinforcements are on the way. With your back against the wall, you stand your own in this tussle, prepared for your death.
Prepare for your death, Leon.
Only to be opportunely, if not miraculously, saved by the church bell. The game gives you a free pass, allowing you to proceed with caution, while trolling Leon, who remarks wryly and comically in disbelief of his perilous prelude. It was all a test, a trial, a tease of an opening act, simultaneously setting the record straight about what to expect in this situational irony by subjecting us to a suspense that is chilling and cinematic, and rectifying any prior notion of what a video game could be. The multi-layered elements of psychological thriller and highly stylized defy convention and coalesce into true survival horror and something beyond genre, an experience that crosses over the surreal into the sublime. If Resident Evil 4 goes over the top, that's because it belongs there at the pinnacle of gaming. Of course, the game doesn't try so hard to be great. It merely achieves greatness almost by default, rather effortlessly and humbly through confidence and poise. The modesty shows in the stylization of the lowercase text title. What isn't modest is director Shinji Mikami putting himself on his own title card at the end of the credits, though he deserves it. He is the architect of survival horror and modern action games in general. That Resident Evil 4 is better than every game that came after it is only a testament to the brilliance and prescience of Mikami. We throw a lot of words around when trying to loft praise onto something or someone, except that Resident Evil 4 can only be defined as a true masterpiece, probably the most perfect game ever made, and a flawless example of the form. Okay, so the first half hour of the game is pretty good, and if the rest of the game is anything like it, things are promising. But the game never loses its focus. The party only gets crazier. The secret to this sustained excellence? Resident Evil 4 is the definition of what will they think of next. The progression fully embraces the outlandish, and that is why it succeeds. From a tottering village, to a menacing castle in the middle of nowhere, to an island with an industrialized military complex where they conduct diabolical biological experimentations. From farmers with pitchforks to maniacs with chainsaws to mutated fish. Dogs with tentacles. Men with iron claws. Alien mutants that regenerate body parts. A president's daughter with ballistics.
Too.
And so much more. You never know what's going to happen in this game, and that mystery keeps you guessing, keeps you invested, and keeps you enthralled with every decorative environment, every distinct beast and combatant, new friend and new foe, and every creative challenge that presents itself, even as spine-tingling, grotesque, and imposing as these exhibits are. But let's add some more context to everything. The game itself took over 5 years to develop and underwent several different design processes, which even spawned a whole other series you might have heard of before finally taking shape as the opus we now know. The final incarnation is transcendent. The genius gameplay, metaphorical story, and mesmerizing atmosphere are each impressive enough, but the game is altogether lyrical, timeless and iconic for not only its monumental innovations, which are still relevant and influential today, but for its inimitable identity, its revolutionary genre-bending aesthetic, and the boundless, pure imagination and the scope of creative latitude expressed in every righteous frame. The boldness of its originality and unabashed courage in its implementation yield a substance that is as irreplaceable as its position in history is undeniable. Resident Evil 4 is just unimpeachable goodness. The inventiveness starts with the combat and lends itself to virtually every other area of the design. You have limited inventory management regarding finite space in concert with a finite supply of ammo and first aid items. You have to be strategic, but you do get access to gaming's #1 NPC, the Merchant. He's a friendly hobo from who knows where that pops up at wayward intervals throughout the game, each time showing up with an uncanny jolly good mood and something new and powerful for your arsenal. He won't sell you ammo, but he will sell you some of the coolest weaponry that you can upgrade and enhance to your liking. He is as convenient as he is inexplicable, but just plausible and funny enough to be one of the most useful and welcomed gaming mechanics ever sourced. Every weapon that can be purchased outright or unlocked through completion feels earned and worthwhile. Customization is significant and each weapon is balanced one way or the other by taking a special ammo type with its own rarity. There are enough permutations of weapons that you can play around with to make every individual player's experience seem fresh. Add in the different grenade types, particular weaknesses that each enemy has, and the hidden tactics for each boss, and you have a system impeccably designed and equalized. Many enemies move slower and appear more docile, but they are smarter and they attack in groups and in devastating combinations, often making each encounter a test of resourcefulness and an exercise in micromanagement. You have to shoot while stationary, giving a more authentic and fraught feel to the nature of existing in Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 ups the ante of what combat can be with the pioneering quick-time events that enable you to shoot different vital parts of enemies and deal finishers accordingly of varying damage and utility. These are some of the most satisfactory illustrations of death dealing ever committed in a game. You also have to respond to quick-time events to avoid many instances of insta-death and calamity, which induce some of the most harrowing and heart-pounding moments in gaming, particularly in a groundbreaking sequence involving Leon and Krauser.
As expected. After all, you and I both know where we come from.
Resident Evil 4 provides us with an old lesson on how to create tension by showing, not telling. Well, sometimes by boasting about the bad that actually show up and exceed our expectations and fears, but mainly by suggesting rather than putting on open display. Resident Evil 4 bolsters the reputation of its more monstrous morticians by making the most out of each manifestation. The hero of the story is Leon, but the star of the game is the chainsaw. Or the El Gigante. Garrador. Regenerator. Each a master of their domain and spooky setting and wear off and your guard is down, and usually when you are low on health and ammo. They are used sparingly and to the greatest thematic effect. Zombies don't know they're dead, but Ganados are similar in that they also don't remember what it's like to be alive. They will stop at nothing to eliminate Leon, and they can't be killed so much as they must be incinerated. Exploded. Exposed to the light. Kneecapped. Neck broken. Suplexed. And pierced with lead. The extremity of the combat is fatally gruesome and uncensored, a result that is awe-inspiring in presentation and operation. The game is a masterclass in destabilization from the moment you press play. Resident Evil 4 features the single greatest plot twist of all time about 1/4 of the way through the game, when you casually blow the head off of a ganado and, instead of it dropping to the floor in defeat like all reason implies it should, it violently convulses, divulging a parasite that resuscitates its host as it marches on. What emerges is a reality check that changes the whole dynamic. These aren't conventional enemies, and conventional wisdom won't work anymore. The game has changed. It will no longer be so easy as just getting a headshot. The game wasn't lying when it said these weren't zombies. These are zombies 2.0. To add insult to injury, not only can you not merely decapitate them, they can now decapitate you. This adds a whole new dimension to the combat, to the horror, and to the paranoia. You have to go into areas thinking ahead, preparing for the worst and for the unexpected. Every encounter is a puzzle, each with multiple solutions, but you never get tired of solving, again and again. Resident Evil 4's replay value, which is a quality imperative for a game to possess to be considered one of the best, is perhaps its crowning achievement. I've cleared the game over 50 times throughout the years, and I haven't seen the end of time with the game yet. The progression system of carrying over all of your collectibles, along with the addition of special bonus weapons, costumes, difficulty setting, and many games unlocked after completing the game and its challenges, incentivizes you to return to experience the game again, either with more restraint or with the sheer power to decimate everything in sight. With the gameplay being so pleasurable and engrossing, it seems impossible not to play at least multiple times to sample it all. The world is inhabited by an array of collectible treasures which can be examined for their novelty value or sold to the merchant for cash, as well as other little mini-games both in the main story and separate. The Mercenaries is probably the most addictive and consequential minigame ever designed. You get access to playable characters with their own specialized abilities and movesets, and get to play in an arcade setting to set records of high scores to unlock special weapons for the main story. This ensures several hours of additional content to return to after the game is complete. The world design and art design are balanced between fantastic idealism and raw eccentricity, but every design choice is made with careful consideration for ambience and resonance, is incredibly detailed both optically and practically by employing use of space and geometric nuance to match the functional purpose of each evolving scheme and to elicit the myriad of emotions associated with each degree of sensation organic to the setting. Resident Evil 4's elaborate design has produced some of the most elegant and exquisite backdrops and interiors, as well as some of the most brooding and gritty stages and tableaus. It is as unsettlingly ethereal as it is action-oriented. Resident Evil 4's story and themes are some of the most sophisticated and impactful in any game. The plot is somewhat familiar, but it is presented to us in an unfamiliar way in a modern setting with a cast of complex characters, each connected through some past relationship that conflict with some future goal. The basic premise of the story is about how terrorism and religious fanaticism have combined to play a role in the collapse of civility and the undermining of American authority, a concept that was very relevant and all too real during 2004. Sadler is the mastermind behind the terror plot and is one of the most dastardly villains in any game, transparently evil and capable of mind control, shape-shifting, and transforming into unthinkable apparitions of wickedness. This is one of the few antagonists in a story that has complete saliency and agency over his motives, but is so diabolical he refuses to give any to his enemies or even his own allies, which are basically puppets. This is indoctrination of the most maligned kind. The evil residents here have a somber and sympathetic backstory, which is lore done right. As you probe the different locations, you uncover clues and documents from friends and foes which illuminate the facts surrounding the predicament. The Las Plagas, literally the plague, were a parasite that was nearly eradicated long ago. They were fossilized under the castle and later reanimated at the insistence of Lord Sadler, who wanted to use them to create mindless subjects to build up his army. He used the feeble religious leanings of Salazar to manipulate him into compliance. The ganados, such as the monks, and including the terrifying and ambiguous Dr. Salvador and the Bella sisters, history was once halcyon. Even the merchant has an Easter egg in which his eyes glow red depending on the time of night you find him, indicating a benign infection. One of the best qualities of this game lies in its evocation of an Aristotle unity, the concept of having the story take place all at one time. Notice how the game exists over a 24-hour period, with day turning to night and back to day again. There are 3 distinct settings, but only one daylight cycle. This continuity makes the game feel more current, and the change in time serves to bring out the worst of the monsters the longer the nighttime duration. But still, there are multiple perspectives at play here, and they all add up to a captivating and sincere narrative. Women play a key role in the story. Ada, the covert woman in red, is a secret double agent armed with top-of-the-line gadgets in a fearless pursuit of her objective. She is athletic, cunning, and adept at problem-solving, completely self-assured and reliant, and not taking disrespect from any man. She holds a soft spot for Leon, who likewise feels mutual, even though her preoccupation with her current assignment is selfish and nefarious. Ada and Leon are on opposite sides of the law, but they enjoy a symbiotic relationship in this story, one that is critical to the outcome. Ada is Leon's preserver, assisting him from the shadows and de-escalating troublesome situations that he might not otherwise make it out of. That doesn't make her involvement any less complicated. The mini-game Separate Ways explains just how pivotal Ada is to Leon's success, a clever highlight on the contrasting paths these characters take. In the end, they both save each other's skin at least once, which is fitting for both of their character arcs to see them make it out alive. Ada is neither heroine nor villain, but a part of Leon that he can't let go. A fact that is revealingly poignant and adds another dimension of melancholy but also brightness to the story.
Why do you ask?
Come on, tell me.
She's like a part of me I can't.
And then there's Ashley. Ashley isn't there to scream and look stupid, but rather all of her mannerisms and foibles are realistic for a pampered young girl who's abruptly abducted in a terror plot and thrown into a hellish how do you do. You'd be screaming for Leon to help too if you were in her shoes. The game offers substantial rest and recreation in her absence and delivers some of the most breathtaking sequences during these layoffs. But the same can be true when she's in your custody, and the challenge of keeping her alive and accounted for is not only taxing, but it creates an added pressure to complete the trademark simulation of survival. The game even offers you a chance to play as her in what is one of the scariest portions of the game, and it is here that you realize, from her perspective, just how much the protagonists have to contend with. You are nearly helpless, but you manage to find a way out. Ashley proves useful on several occasions. Bonding with Leon over the course of the game, and by the end, she shows maturity and bravery, which is character growth enough to deserve respect. Voiced by Carolyn Lawrence from SpongeBob. Did you think you'd hear Resident Evil 4 and SpongeBob in the same sentence? Ashley is essential for part of Leon's redemption.
Leon!
Ashley! You did good.
Leon's profile is one of gaming's most recognizable and affable, with the moisturized hair that is perfectly coiffed and an overall youthful professional appearance. He is matured, but not above cracking the occasional one-liner even in the most high-risk situations. He's like the boy next door, an unassuming action hero.
Very cute.
His level of self-awareness shows in many key scenarios, like the opening scene where he feigns control of the situation, or at the end of the game how he laments his bad luck with women.
Give me your number when I get back.
May I remind you that you're still on duty?
Story of my life.
He also doesn't take himself too seriously, which is important in his survival of this terror. Early on in the game, Leon loses his jacket when he is captured. This is almost like losing a piece of his armor, but rather an armor piece against the harsh and cruel reality of the world. For the rest of the game, he is symbolically more exposed, even though he enters this title with prudence and resilience. Despite his know-how, even he has to suspend his disbelief when going up against the artful and unreserved evil of this game. He is perfectly crafted for the story and for the player, as none of us are fully prepared for what is in store. He shows emotion, especially with a tuned affection toward Ada, is an honorable and upstanding character with principles and a strong sense of outrage against the injustices of the cult. The enemies treat Leon as merely a distraction, and his nemesis view him to be little more than a pest. I've always thought the game made a strong and charged argument about the nature of life with a philosophical insects' lives compared to humans exchange. Humans can be cruel and selfish, but Resident Evil 4 asserts that life is still worth fighting for. Leon, though plenty capable, is powerless to stop the impending death that will befall many of the beloved characters in this game. The first and most horrific is the death of Luis. Luis is one of the most responsive and cooperative allies to fight alongside in the game, which is why his death is so shocking and so wistful. When we first find him, he is at our mercy. But soon, we are lumped together with him in a struggle to survive. You quickly gain camaraderie as you are both involved in law enforcement and are the only seemingly normal people around. You both are automatically on the same wavelength. It's good company to be in under the circumstances. After the first confrontation, he flees precipitously without a thank you, leaving you skeptical as you fend for yourself once more. But he thereafter returns the favor by lending support when you and Ashley are in a pinch.
I forgot something.
Notes his skill in the cabin fight and proves that he is no coward. He's like a rogue dissident, but a well-received and interesting collaborative. He's a great match. He disappears frequently, brusquely vanishing, always leaving us with more questions than answers, and although you sense he has his own motives, he is invaluable in his aid against the common threat. You can rely on him, and he has honest reasons for helping. He's one of the good guys, resourceful, and knows more about what's going on than you. You follow his lead because you can trust him.
I'm sure. Why are you? It makes me feel better.
His dying words are encouragement and motivation to move on, a powerful message that we accept. The feeling of survivor's guilt harkens back, and vengeance is now a goal as much as survival. The death of Luis is unexpected and sudden, but the grim reality of it shows us that no one is safe in this world. Even Leon, the survivalist that he is at the compassion of Ada, or his own association to the Plaga throughout the story. This adds a human element to Leon. He doesn't have much time to forlorn the dead. Later, we get to know Mike, who also saves us more times than we can count. When he gets his life taken from him in a helicopter crash, we once again feel sadness, loss, and a need for retribution. These are striking and sorrowful developments that affect us and add depth to the exhilaration of our objective. They make us want to carry on and carry out justice. Leon is a gifted physical specimen. He certainly isn't a superhero, especially compared to the brute foes he will encounter. He is highly skilled and trained in an assortment of combat styles. He can kick, elbow, and even suplex, and is very acutely aware of danger. He relies on his instincts, and as a player, you will need instincts of your own to survive the nightmare. But it's through these instincts and experience that allow him to reach the status of the greatest hero in video game history. A common trope of the hero is that he is a loner, that he possesses the courage to do what no one else that is willing and able can dare to do, that he exists outside of the norms of the world that needs him but does not deserve him, and so he stands alone as a symbol of individuality and grace. He is almost a separate entity, higher form. Leon is aligned with these qualities, especially given the unforgiving task at hand and how unappreciated he will be, even with his mission a success. Consider Krauser and Ada, your most erstwhile companions, both of which were once warm allies. Now, both of them are necessarily adversarial, and neither of them wants to talk much about the past except for Leon, who just wants to live a normal life and still thinks it's possible to attain it.
What is it that you fight for, comrade?
My past, I suppose.
Umbrella.
But he is a man on duty. Luis bemoans the fact that being a cop isn't what it's cracked up to be anymore.
Put your life on the line. Nobody really appreciates you enough for it. Being a hero isn't what it's cracked up to be anymore.
This is more than small talk. This is one of the meaningful quotes to summarize the theme of the story: perseverance. The game opens like a requiem, but ends with a deserved happy ending. Because Leon's better nature takes him there, he overcomes the horror of his past to save the world on the darker hour of his present, saves the girl, and escapes the nightmare. He doesn't get to be with Ada. He has to put up with the incessant action, and even turns down the offer of guilt-free overtime. Leon does it all because it is the right thing to do. He is the archetype of what a hero should be, and so is Resident Evil 4, an archetype of what a video game should be. Constructive and reflective as a reverie, Resident Evil 4 is as good as it gets.
Come on. Let's go home.